Peace, family. This is Lions Den with another news and commentary. Um, this story is really, you know, broke my heart. Um, on a personal level, I used to live in North Carolina. So I used to live in a town called Pilot Mountain, North Carolina, which is outside of Winston-Salem. And also I used to live in Raleigh. And to me, this story of Hurricane Florence and Tropical Storm Florence now, was flooded half of the state, and that's half. Um, Wilmington, North Carolina, Lumberton, North Carolina, all that area is just basically flooded. This article is according to CBS News. Tropical Storm Florence, worst flooding is yet to come in some areas, Hurricane Center warns. This is the truth because still, even though it's a tropical storm, it's still a dangerous storm. And it's dumping more rain and flooded half of the state. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read the CBS News article and then play their video, and I'm going to finish the rest of my commentary. Florence Fast Facts. At least 14 deaths from the storm have been confirmed, including a man and a woman in Arley County who died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Swansboro, North Carolina has now received more than 30 inches of rain. Several others have received more than 20 inches. Florence is causing flash flooding and major river flooding over significant portions of North and South Carolina, the National Hurricane Center said. Life-threatening, catastrophic flash floods and prolonged significant river flooding are possible in portions of North Carolina, South Carolina, and the southern to Appalachians, to the western North Carolina, to west central Virginia, and far eastern West Virginia into early next week, the National Weather Service says. Landslides are also possible in the higher terrain of the southern and central Appalachians across western North Carolina into southwestern Virginia as Florence moved inland. Water levels along the North and South Carolina coast are gradually receding as of Saturday night, the National Hurricane Center said. Nearly 1 million homes and businesses lost power in North and South Carolina. A couple of tornadoes are still possible through Sunday in North Carolina and northeastern South Carolina, the National Hurricane Center says. This part is from New Bern, North Carolina. A day after blowing ashore with 90 miles per hour winds, Florence practically parked itself over land all day long and poured on the rain. With rivers swelling towards record levels, thousands of people were ordered to evacuate for fear the next few days could bring the most destructive round of flooding in North Carolina history. I'm just emotional because I used to live in that state. More than 2 feet of rain have fallen in place, and the drenching went on and on, with forecasters saying there could be an additional 1.5 feet before Sunday is out. I'm gonna stop right there. It's a commercial that talk about North Carolina. The commercial happens a couple of years ago when it says you can leave North Carolina, but North Carolina can't leave you. And that is so true. I've been through North Carolina the last couple of years. I live with my late grandmother at the time. She lives in Pilot Mountain, Mount Airy, North Carolina, so I already know about that place, which is near Piedmont, which is Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point. So Pilot Mountain is, the show Andy Griffith. It was Mount Pilot. It was Mayberry, but it became Mount Airy. It's still affecting me because I used to live there. It's still affecting me now. It affected me also because I used to live in Raleigh. You know, North Carolina is always going to be my home and my heart. So it breaks my heart seeing, stories of flooding. You know, whether it's Wilmington, which is like the Outer Banks, or whether it's it's just heartbreaking. It's literally heartbreaking, and the worst is yet to come in some areas, especially in the Raleigh area. Um, it's 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 heartbreaking and it's hurtful. So let me go ahead and continue on this story and to finish my commentary. I cannot overstate it. Floodwaters are rising. If you aren't watching for them, you are risking your life. The Governor Roy Cooper said. He's the governor of North Carolina, by the way, for those of you who don't know who Governor Roy Cooper. As of 11 p.m., Florence was centered about 40 miles east-southeast of Columbia, South Carolina, amid crawling west at 3 miles per hour, not even as fast as a person walking. Its winds were down to 40 miles per hour, but with half of the storm still out over the Atlantic, Florence continued to collect warm ocean water and dump it on shore. In its initial onslaught along the coast, Florence buckled buildings, deluged entire communities, and knocked out power to hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses. But the storm was shaping up as a two-part disaster, with a second delay stage triggered by rainwater working its way into the river and streams. The flash flooding could devastate communities and endanger dams, roads, and bridges. Stream gauges across the region show water levels rising steadily, with forecasts calling for rivers to crash Sunday and Monday at or near record levels. The Little River, the Cape Fear, the Lumber, the Neuse, the Waccamaw, and the PD were all projected to overrun their banks, possibly flooding cities and towns. Authorities ordered the immediate evacuation of up to 7,500 people living within a mile of stretch of the Cape Fear River and the Little River, about 100 miles from the coast. The evacuation zone included part of the city of Fayetteville, population 200,000. Fayetteville is, Fayetteville, North Carolina. I know that very well. That's where the military, we're also a military town. So, wow. Let me continue on. Record flooding is expected Tuesday on the Cape Fear at a crest of 62 feet there. In the Fayetteville area, John Rose owns a furniture business with stores less than a mile, 1.6 kilometers, away from the Cape Fear River. He moved quickly as workers helped him empty more than 1,000 mattresses from a warehouse in a low-lying strip mall. If the river rises to the level they say it's going to, then this warehouse is going to be underwater, he said. Excuse me. And on Saturday evening, Duke Energy said heavy rains caused a slope to collapse at a coal ash landfill at a closed power station outside of Wilmington, North Carolina. Duke spokeswoman Paige Sheehan said about 2,000 cubic yards, 1,530 cubic meters of ash was displaced at the Sutton plant, and that contaminated storm water likely flow into the plant cooling pond. The company had yet determined whether any contamination entered the Cape Fear River. Sutton was retired in 2013, and the company has been excavating ash to remove to safer lying landfills. The ash left behind when coal is burned contains toxic heavy metals, including lead and arsenic. One potential road was blocked as flooded flow forced to shut down over a 16-mile stretch of Interstate 95, the main road along the eastern seaboard. My goodness. In New Bern, along the coast, homes were completely surrounded by water, and rescuers used inflatable boats to reach people. Kevin Knox and his family were rescued from their flooded brick home with the help of Army Sergeant Johann Mackey, whose team used a phone app to locate people in distress. Mackey rode in a boat through a flooded neighborhood, navigating through trees and a past fence post to reach the Knox house. Amazing, they did awesome, said Knox, who was stranded with several others, including a boy carried out a life vest. New Bern spokesman Colleen Roberts said 455 people in all were rescued in a town of 30,000 residents without any serious injuries or deaths. But thousands of buildings were damaged in the destruction Roberts called heart-wrenching. Wow. I'm speechless, guys. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to play 2 videos, and then I'm going to finish the rest of my commentary, because this is so heartbreaking. Summary of watches and warnings in effect at 11 p.m. Eastern Saturday, which was last night. Tropical storm warnings in effect for South Santee River, South Carolina, to Surf City, North Carolina. Florence is expected to produce heavy and excessive rainfall in the following areas: southern and western North Carolina, in addition to 10 to 15 inches, with storm total accumulations up to 20 inches in western North Carolina and up to 40 inches in southeast North Carolina. Northern South Carolina and southwestern Virginia, 5 to 10 inches isolated, 15 inches. West central Virginia into far eastern West Virginia, north of Roanoke and west of Charlottesville, 3 to 6 inches isolated, 8 inches. There you have it. So I'm gonna do 2 videos from CBS News, and then I'm gonna let's see here, and then I'm gonna finish the rest of my commentary. So maybe 3 videos. So I'm gonna do this first video. It's called Florence Dumps Heavy Rain in North Carolina. So I'm gonna do this first video, and here it is.
Not getting enough cash back with that credit card? Turn to the nerds. Want to invest that bonus? Turn to the nerds.
So
Looking for the perfect mortgage? Turn to the nerds. Oops. Sorry about that. Hey there. Need a travel rewards card? Turn. Auto loan? 2. Want a lower interest rate? The nerds. The experts at NerdWallet make it easy to make smart money moves. Compare credit cards, mortgages, savings accounts, and more at nerdwallet.com.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Glor in Wilmington, North Carolina, and this is a special edition of the CBS Evening News. The rain will barely let up here on this coast for another 24 hours. The preliminary rainfall totals from Florence are staggering. The National Weather Service says more than 30 inches of rain was measured in Swansboro, North Carolina. That shatters the state's tropical system rainfall record of more than 24 inches set during Hurricane Floyd in 1999. Officials warn some rivers are approaching historic flood levels, and the worst of it may still be to come. The death toll from Florence climbed today to at least 12. Some have been killed by fallen trees. Others have died on flooded roads. Nearly 1 million homes and businesses in the Carolinas have lost power. Today, the mayor of Wilmington told us it could take weeks to restore all electricity to this city. President Trump and Vice President Pence receive updates on the storm at the White House today. The president plans to travel here sometime soon. We have a team of correspondents covering this disaster. We're going to begin tonight with Adriana Diaz and the massive rescue operation in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Adriana?
Jeff, despite a mandatory evacuation order in Jacksonville, many people decided to stay home, and that means some people saw these floodwaters rise around them. Crews that were supposed to be out on the street collecting debris had to be rerouted to help with rescue efforts. Volunteers brought boats, and federal air support was called in. Coast Guard helicopters flew through rain to reach people today in homes too remote for rescue boats. We watched as guardsmen were deployed to the ground. Have you been pulling people from homes, from roofs?
Yeah, it's people that flag us down really need help.
Most evacuations were by boat. We found this family looking for any neighbors who might need help.
Man, it was pretty quick. I woke up till it was about halfway up the street, and about 2 hours later, we was worried about it coming into our house.
The National Guard, first responders, and volunteers rescued dozens of people who live in low-lying areas of Onslow County.
Hello!
Where the worst flooding is chest deep. Callie Sterling lives in a dry part of the county, but rushed here to help.
What does it look like back there? It's pretty deep. It's scary. There's cars already going under. There's people freaking out.
Some brought what they could in shopping bags.
You're okay.
Others cradled wet pets to safety. This scene is just a slice of Florence's assault on the Carolinas. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper.
The water is rising fast everywhere, even in places that don't typically flood. Many people who think that the storm has missed them have yet to see its threat.
That's why Anthony Love's family is leaving. They've been here for 2 decades, and this is their first time fleeing the floodwater.
This is the worst it's ever been. Luckily, we don't have any water in our house, but it's getting close.
We've never seen this before. Never. Not like this. So that's something, that's going to be like for the history books.
This rain is expected to continue for days, which means more risk of flooding. In fact, a curfew that already lifted will be reimposed tonight at 9 p.m. until 7 a.m. tomorrow. Officials don't want anyone out on the streets when they can't see well because of the flooding, because of downed power lines, and also with no power in this area, there are no street lights. Jeff?
Adriana, thank you very much.
So, there you have it. I'm sorry, got a little bit emotional here because North Carolina was my home state, and it's just so saddening because even though, and like I told you earlier, when a commercial a couple of years ago, when that's them say you even though you leave North Carolina, North Carolina will never leave you, and this is why you see all of this happening when Florence hits, who made landfall in Wilmington, North Carolina, and all the dumps and rains and lights were out. I talked to friends of mine that still lives there. I got cousins who lives there. Who stay there, live there, and I said, and one of my friends was saying that they didn't have any power. The power goes off and on like a light switch. It's just that bad, and I really felt like part of it. North Carolina will always be my home because I used to live there. And so when you see stories like this, it literally breaks my heart. So I'm going to go ahead and play another video of the CBS News of the situation in North and South Carolina. And I'm sorry, guys, but I'm going to go ahead and play it, and I'm also give you my commentary.
Racing isn't the only thing on my mind. And with GoDaddy, I'm
Sorry,
making
guys,
my ideas
another
real.
commercial.
With GoDaddy, you can get a website to sell online, and it will look good. I made my own way. Now it's time to make yours. Just like it should. Racing.
The worst storms seem to bring out the best in people. We have seen it again with Florence. First responders, service members, and the types of heroes who don't wear uniforms have been risking their lives to save others. Amid the worst floodwaters and rain, rescuers search for those in need.
I took what was important, I put it inside the house expecting this to happen.
Leroy McGee joined Pastor Matthew Drake and members of their church, volunteering to check on homes in their Jacksonville neighborhood.
I was getting antsy. I couldn't do it any longer because I knew people needed help. So. How you doing, buddy?
They found 2 dogs.
I know. It's a little scary. Come on, baby.
Carried them back to their boat and to safety.
That's what I want somebody to do for us.
In New Bern, reporter Julie Wilson helped rescue a dog during a live report. As rising waters there threaten homes, Sergeant Nick Muhar from the North Carolina National Guard carried the smallest member of an evacuating family. Firefighters in Wilmington responded to the worst of the storm, which claimed the lives of a mother and her infant. More than 500 people were rescued throughout New Bern and Jacksonville by first responders and volunteers. Throughout the Carolinas, rescuers continued to respond to Florence by boat and on foot, carrying the most vulnerable to safety. Good for them. We're going to have much more on the storm tomorrow on CBS Sunday Morning and on Face the Nation. You can download the CBS News app to watch 24/7 coverage on our streaming news channel, CBSN. I'm Jeff Glor in Wilmington, North Carolina. Good night.
But there you have it. I'm just gonna see one last video from CBS News coverage of the Florence, and then after that, I'll finish the rest of my commentary.
Racing isn't the only thing on my mind. And with GoDaddy, I'm making my ideas real. With GoDaddy, you can get a website to sell online, and it will look good. I made my own way. Now it's time to make yours.
Just like it should.
New evacuation orders were issued today in and around the city of Fayetteville. Inland rivers are expected to rise to dangerous levels over the next few days. Here's DeMarco Morgan.
Volunteer firefighters went door to door today across the evacuation zone, urging holdouts to head out now.
If you are in these areas, this is a serious, life-threatening matter. If you are refusing to leave during this mandatory evacuation, then you need to do things like notify your legal next of kin, because the loss of life is very, very possible.
This is the Cape Fear River today. The river could crest at 62 feet, but right now it's barely halfway there. Florence may dump as many as 18 inches of rain before she's finished. 30 miles south, the city of Lumberton is bracing for the flooding many see as inevitable. On Friday, even as the storm raged, an army of volunteers and National Guardsmen came here to try to close up a section of the levee that drops down for railroad tracks. Robin Bridges came to this Red Cross shelter the day it opened.
So we already know that the flood is coming, so why stay when we know we could come and be safe?
Back in Fayetteville, the Deep Creek Bait and Tackle Shop was about the only place for hot food. It will likely be flooded out soon, but owner Craig Williams kept it open for neighbors, power line workers, and first responders.
We said we would set up for them and try to feed them till we run out of food, which is coming up real fast.
The Cape Fear River is now standing at about 25 feet, but during Hurricane Matthew, the water actually rose to the bottom of this bridge that you see. Jeff, if predictions hold, the water will crest over the bridge sometime Tuesday.
That is just amazing to hear. DeMarco, thank you.
Okay, family, there you have it. Like I said before, this is devastating. People lost their lives within the last few days because of Hurricane Florence. Florence just ripped half of North Carolina and South Carolina into shreds. And it isn't over. Matter of fact, it still remain a tropical storm. It doesn't matter if it's a hurricane, the category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or it doesn't matter if it's a tropical storm. It's still a dangerous storm, and it dumps a lot of rain in half of the areas, and so I'm just becoming a YouTuber and talk show host, and this affected me personally because I used to live in North Carolina, and from Powell Mountain to Raleigh, that's how much I love that state. And now you see Florence just rip half of the state, rip it apart. And people lost their lives. people that's lost their lives. So my thoughts and prayers goes to the people in the state of North Carolina and in South Carolina. It really affected me emotionally because, again, I used to live in that state. And like the phrase said in that commercial, you can leave North Carolina, but North Carolina can't leave you or don't leave you. And it affects people that used to live there or still live there. It affects you in that some kind of way. So people, you know, if you live in North Carolina and South Carolina, you know, my prayers goes out to all you guys affected by the storm. And I hope you guys can stay safe. And again, you have my prayers. You have my prayers. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this stories. Sorry, I'm starting to get emotional here. Leave a comment. Tell me about this story. Share this video. Subscribe my YouTube channel. Subscribe my reaction channel. And subscribe my Black Junction channel for all the news and commentary. With that being said, it's Lionsden signing off. Deuces.